Good morning. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio Network. Global Media Network LLC is a primary company and PW Enlighten, Entertain, and let's not forget mindfulness because it's becoming a very important subject. On today's Monday Tips, we're going to turn things a little upside down and inside out with some of the stories that have been hitting the news. And we're going to start with the first one by Micah Lasher, Lasher, which you can find on Politics. And it was published on March 21st, 2025. And his title for his article was Beyond Congress: How the Blue States Can Lead the Current Administration's Resistance, or capital TRUMP. Democrats are major party in 15 states with 123 million people and powerful economic engines, and that's leverage if they use it. Democrats across the country are desperate for their party to take a more aggressive and coherent fighting stance against our current administration. That is why there is so much anger about the decision by some Democrats not to filibuster the current administration's bill to keep the federal government and its agenda rolling along. But moving right along, what that decision revealed is the abject weakness of the cards that credential Democrats are playing with. A far more effective fight would be waged by Democrats in state houses across America. 15 states, home to 123 million people, are Democrats. And of the legislature, Democrats control 2 of the 3 and another Thank you for your patience. 15 states are home to 123 million people who are Democrat. Democrats control the governor's mansion and both houses of the legislature. They control 2 of the 3 in another 5 states, home to an additional 37 million people. With overlapping within the geography, 22 states and the District of Columbia have a Democratic attorney general. In other words, roughly half of America's population lives in states where Democrats have far more power than they do on Capitol Hill. These are the states that generate the bulk of our nation's economic activity. They are the places most likely to be affected by our current administration's agenda, which targets both progressive policies and federal funding streams that blue states in particular depend on. Our current administration would be happy to see places like New York and California forced to choose between losing federal education funding and, say, green lighting school privatization schemes or slashing Medicare, Medicaid, and curtailing access to abortion care. And so blue states have both a lot of reasons and a lot of power to be creative and proactive in fighting back. Here's some of the tips, or 4 of them, that should help you who live in these states to fight back against the current administration. His philosophy is, if you ain't with me, you're against me. Number 1, empower state agencies to do what the feds won't. In other words, with the current administration dismantling parts of the federal government that usually protect Americans, may be the place where blue states can most discrimination to environmental preservation. Legislatures should give state agencies the authority and resources necessary to take enforcement action and protect their people. And with the crack up of the federal public health infrastructure, blue states should expand information sharing between their health departments and fund multi-state consortiums so vital disease tracking and response efforts can continue across state borders. Number 2 tip, protect the people that the current administration is targeting. With each passing day, our president, his administration, and his gubernatorial proxies in deep red states get bolder in their efforts to persecute by persecution or even to round up people with no due process. They're thinking of getting rid of habeas corpus. The last president who did that was Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. From doctors providing abortion care to immigrants who have broken no laws, blue states should pass laws to shut down cooperation with the federal government and red states when it comes to the weaponization of law enforcement. Are you going to wait for the Gestapo and the brown shirts? My opinion. 3, supercharge state attorney general. Democratic AGs are already fighting and winning in court, even though the current administration tends to ignore all judges, especially the ones from the hum Supreme Court, to slow down some of the most draconian actions by the current administration. But this represents a massive new line of work that could extend into any state should be providing their attorneys general with significant new resources to litigate on every front. 4, wage fiscal warfare. Perhaps the most existentially challenging assault that blue states will face will be financial. This may come in the form of straightforward federal funding cuts or more pernicious political gambles where state officials are told to bend the knee on policy issues in order to hold on to federal cash. Bending the knee, of course, is not a smart long-term strategy when responding to the acceleration creep of fascism. Yep, go study Mein Kampf. It explains it all there. Blue states must figure out how to fight back, including developing mechanisms to replace federal funds without the kinds of tax increase that drive people from one state to another. People are leaving Florida. People are leaving California. Why? Wake up. One obvious way, increasing corporate income taxes that are tied to in-state sales rather than a company's physical presence. Increases could be structured to go into effect if and when states are hit by federal funding cuts. This would have the added benefit of putting direct pressure on some of the billionaires who support or at least acquiescence with the current administration depends on. Hey, contact the Saudis. Didn't he just accept a gift of a gold gilded Boeing 747 as the new Air Force One? Of course, I look at it as a bribe. But then I was brought up in the 50s. What do you expect? The current administration depends on another more nuclear option being proposed in Maryland and New York would withhold state payments to the federal government when the current president refuses to disperse funds owed to the state in contravention of a court decision. This is not a distant hypothetical. Less than 2 weeks after he took office, a federal court issued a restraining order against his administration's massive funding freeze. And a week after that, the judge in the case said that the administration was ignoring his order as state infrastructure projects. This guy has a revenge list, and anybody that gets in his way either sent to a Salvador prison, they're tried for treason, so they're either shot or hung, and he wants to make these executions public. Make sure that you understand that he has the power to end your life and your children's life and your grandchildren's life immediately. Different pieces of his state-based resistant agenda have been enacted or being pursued in different places. But now is the moment when every Democratic governor and legislator in every blue state must summon their most legally aggressive and risk-tolerant policy-making instinct. Even where a particular idea falls flat or gives the MAGA crowd grist for their political mail, lawmakers should not be deterred or overcalculate. And to the extent that states can act in concert, these tools, these tips will have even more power. We are now in an uncharted fascist waters, and the sharks are circling. The net effect of all our tips to fight in the states will be to protect our people, our citizens, from the very real threats posed by the current administration and his toadies, and to give Democrats something to rally around: the flag, boys and girls, men and women, children and grandchildren. And we can try to wrest back control of a Congress that's been cowed, blackmailed, and manipulated, and more effectively confront this man at the federal level. Thank you very much for listening to Monday Tips with Lillian. This podcast is supported by 3 programs, 3 companies: Ruby.ai, AIwithlillian.com takes you to Ruby AI. Take a look at the testimonials, take a look at the demos, and then sign up for a monthly description. Also by Conscious Research Solutions. Go over to passionatworldtalkradio.com/research made simple blog. Read all the reasons why you fail at doing your research and all the reasons that we can help you as a research assistant. passionatworldtalkradio.com/research made simple blog. And then sign up for a 15-minute free console. Also, if you wish to hear the whole truth and nothing but the truth, then you need to help us stay on the internet. Check us out at passionworldtalkradio.com/donation and help us with our programs to make sure you hear real news, not the one that is manufactured. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to see this program in living color, go over to passionworldtalkradio.com, scroll down to State of Current Affairs, click on that. It'll take you to a web page where there's a Google link. Click on that, and it'll take you into the belly of the beast. Thank you, Day.